So let us start. Good morning, students. We have completed the three equations of motion. Now we know that the velocity of an accelerated object changes with time, and this change in velocity is due to either change in the direction of the motion or change in the magnitude of the motion or the both. So that we call it as the accelerated motion. Now one example we see, I have written on the board. This is a rectangle, this is a pentagon, this is hexagon, etc. Now the object is moving. I have shown the direction of motion. Now how many times it is changing the direction? Suppose this is starting from this point, it changes direction here, again it changes direction here, again it changes direction here. Now I have increased one more side. It has got 4 sides, it has got 5 sides, pentagon. Again there is change in the direction. Again I have increased the side, one more side, hexagon it is. Again change in the direction you are observing. Now go on increasing the sides of that object in infinite way. Some time will come, it will form a circle, and then we say that the object is moving in a circular motion or in a circular path. Go on increasing the sides of this figure or of this diagram, and one time will come that there is a circle or the object is moving in a circular path. And now here, if the motion is uniform motion, the change in velocity is only due to the change in direction. So we say that the object is moving in a circular path and the change in velocity is only due to the change in the direction. Continuously it is moving and it is changing the direction only. So from all these figures we see the changes in direction, and one time will come the object will move in the circular path. If an object moving along a circular path of radius r, so the circular path is having radius that we know, and that is radius r, and it takes time t. Suppose the object is starting from this point, then after going in this direction it is coming again to this point, then we say that it has completed one round. It has completed one round means how much distance it has completed, that we know very well, that is the circumference of the circle. So in time t it has completed one round. To come back to its original position or starting position, it has started from this, you can take here, it starts from this, again it is moving and coming to this point, means it has completed one round in that circular path. So its speed can be determined by using the formula that you can calculate the distance of the path, and speed is equal to distance upon time. How much distance it has covered? It has covered the distance of the circumference of the circle. So speed of the object moving in a circular path is equal to circumference upon time. Now you know the formula of circumference is 2 pi r. R is the radius of the circle. So velocity is equal to 2 pi r upon t. Now if the object is moving in a circular path, there is one activity given in your book. Suppose there is a continuously moving disc. This is the disc. You can have this experiment. You can do this experiment at your home also. And if the coin is placed on the rotating disc or circulating disc, if I put the coin here and I give motion to this circular disc, the coin will be thrown off. How it will be thrown off? Anywhere you put this coin, it will go in this direction, and that direction, wherever the coin is, if suppose it is here, it is falling from here, it will go in this direction. You might have played that sling. A rope is tied with the stone and you are moving continuously. You leave the force of that stone and the stone will fall off. In the same way, this circulating or this rotating disc, if we put the coin, it will, anywhere you see, you can do it so many times, it will go in the tangential direction. This is the anywhere. This is tangent, this is tangent. Tangent means it is slightly touching to the circumference of the circle, and that tangent, as we know, it is perpendicular to the radius of the circle. So the direction of velocity in uniform circular motion, that coin and this coin will be thrown off in the direction of the tangent which is perpendicular to the radius. Here you can take, here you can take. So it will be always perpendicular to the radius of the circle. So that same experiment of the sling also, that the stone will be falling off as the in the tangential direction. So you can have so many examples in our day-to-day life of circular motion. You can tell the movement of the motion of the planets around the sun. That is also an example of the circular motion, or the motion which is uniform motion. Again, the electrons revolving around the nucleus, that is also an example of the circular motion. Till now, we have studied the equations of motions, Newton's equations of motions. Now, we have to study the laws of motion. Last year, we have studied the chapter force. Now, I have got this pen. It will remain on my hand if I don't apply any force on it. If I apply force, now it is moving, it is having motion. This suppose duster, it will be falling off when I move the or give any motion to that duster. It will fall down in that way. That we have to. So to move the stationary object, to change the direction of the moving object, we have to apply force. That we know now very well. To move the stationary object, to change the direction of the moving object, and to stop the motion of the object. For all these things, we require the force. Now some examples are given here. First example, a static object does not move without application of force. Suppose this is the board. This is static and it will remain here years together if nobody applies force to this board. If we apply the force, it will move somewhere. Otherwise, it will be here only years together. So a static object does not move without application of force. Any example you can take. Suppose a stone is falling on the road and that stone will be there if anybody does not move it. So that is the static object. Second example, the force which is sufficient to lift a book from a table is not sufficient to lift the table. That we know very well. So if you want to lift the table, you require more force. And if we want to only move the duster, that will require less force. That we know definitely very well. Third example, fruits on a tree fall down when its branches are shaken. That we know. To fall the or to have the fruits, we will shake the branches of the tree and the fruits will fall off. Especially in the days of mangoes or raw mangoes, how will you fall it? Then fruits on a tree fall down when its branches are shaken. An electric fan keeps on rotating for some time even after it is switched off. That we know very well. We switched off the electric fan, but till it rotates. Again, you can tell so many examples also. A train coming on the platform. The driver applies brakes before a long distance, and though it is coming in the platform, it will go further and then it will stop. So this is also an example that the objects which are in the motion will require force to stop. The objects which are stationary will also require force to get motion, etc. So this property of that object, that is called the inertia, and that inertia is related to the mass of the object. Just now we have seen this example. The force which is sufficient to lift a book from a table is not sufficient to lift the table because the mass of the table is more than that of the mass of the book. Means this property inertia is related to the mass of the object. Accordingly, we have to study the Newton's first law of motion, balanced and unbalanced forces. You might have played the tug of war, so that we know very well. Some students or some friends, they are pulling from that side, some are pulling from this side. Both are pulling, then this middle portion will remain constant. Some are pulling to the, if these two forces, they are balanced, then the rope will not be pulled anywhere. But suppose there are 2 boys only, here there are 5 to 6 boys, the rope will be pulled in this direction. Means unbalanced force, balanced and unbalanced forces. If balanced forces are there, then it will not be pulled anywhere, only this middle portion will be stationary. But the unbalanced forces are there, then and then only this rope will be moved in that direction. Suppose this is, I have put this duster in this way, I have put this duster, so it has got balance due to my hand. But if I move this duster, again I have my finger to this side, if I move the finger, the duster will definitely fall off. Means there will be no balance for the duster. Immediately if I move the finger, the unbalanced force will be there and the duster will fall off. That is here in the Newton's first law of motion. This is the first law of motion. An object continues to remain at rest or in a state of uniform motion along a straight line unless an external unbalanced force acts on it. Unbalanced force, I have told you the example of the rope, I have told you the example of the duster. If there is no unbalanced force on it, then it will remain in the state of rest, it will remain in the state of motion in the straight line if there are balanced forces. And if there are unbalanced forces, then and then only it will change its position. That is, it will change its, or that is related to the inertia of that object. So you have to write the law. Law you have to write in the same way. In definition, you have to write as it is. This is the first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion. An object continues to remain at rest or in a state of motion along a straight line unless an external unbalanced force acts on it. If the forces are balanced, I have told you the example of rope, the rope will not move in any direction. But if there are unbalanced forces, then and then only it will move or it will show motion. This is the first law of motion. Now, Newton's second law of motion. Suppose you are playing with a ball. One ball is plastic ball, another ball is cork ball that is used to play the cricket. Now, if you throw the plastic ball to your friend, so it will be easier for him to catch that ball. But if the ball is cork ball, that is heavy ball, and you are throwing it with the speed, then it will be difficult for that friend to catch the ball. You can understand why. Again, if suppose instead of ball I am throwing or your friend is throwing same amount or same mass stone towards you with the speed, what will happen? It will definitely cause you injury. Means, can you understand anything here? Suppose plastic ball, suppose thermocol ball you can take, then it will not cause any injury. Means that is depending on the whatever effect of that force applied. Means you are throwing ball. Which ball? If there is plastic ball, if there is cork ball, suppose the thermocol ball is there, you are throwing it. You are throwing it means you are applying force. If you are applying force to the plastic ball, if you are applying force to the thermocol ball, if you are applying force to the cork ball, if you are applying force to the stone, having mass equal to that of the cork ball. So you are applying force, you are giving motion to it, means some velocity it has got. Then what is happening? The effect of force applied will be different. For cork ball it is different, for stone it will be different, for plastic ball it will be different, for thermocol ball it will be different. Why it is different? Can you tell me? It depends on the mass of that object. It also depends on the velocity of the object, and for that Newton has given one more concept, that is called the momentum. Momentum is denoted by P. Momentum is nothing but the product of the mass and velocity. P is equal to m into v. So that force applied, effect of force applied depends on the mass as well as the velocity. So momentum is the product of mass and velocity. So mass is denoted in terms of kilogram, velocity in meters per second. So the unit of momentum is kilogram meter per second, that is the SI unit, and the CGS unit for momentum is gram centimeter per second. Now this momentum, again velocity is, it is there considered. Velocity is the vector quantity, so momentum is also a vector quantity. Now we know that momentum is equal to P is equal to m into v, that is mass into velocity. So accordingly Newton has given his second law of motion. The rate of change of momentum is proportional to the applied force, whatever force we are applying, and the change of momentum occurs in the direction of the force. In this direction, suppose you are applying force, the change in momentum occurs in that direction. So second law tells us the rate of change of momentum is proportional to the applied force, and the momentum occurs in the direction of the applied force. Now suppose the mass of the object is m and it has got initial velocity u. When the force is applied in the direction of its velocity, for time t, its velocity becomes v, means final velocity is v, that I have told you. You have to now remember always that mass, m is mass, u is initial velocity, v is final velocity, t is time, a is acceleration, etc. So mass is m, it has got initial velocity u, it has velocity v after time t, after applying the force. When the force is applied in the direction of its velocity, for time t, its velocity becomes v. Now what our law tells us, that the rate of change of momentum is proportional to the change of momentum. Applied force and change of momentum occurs in the direction of the force. The initial momentum, therefore momentum you know, mass into velocity. U is initial velocity. So initial momentum is equal to m into u. The final momentum after time t by applying force, m into v. The rate, now our law, rate of change of momentum is equal to change in momentum upon time. Therefore rate of change of momentum, how will you calculate? By final momentum minus initial momentum, mv minus mu divided by time. Now I have taken m common here from this, mv minus mu, m is taken common, it remains v minus u upon t. So yesterday or the day before yesterday we have seen v minus u means change in velocity. Change in velocity in time t is called the acceleration, that we know very well. So this total becomes v minus u upon t becomes a. So that is the acceleration. Change in velocity, rate of change of velocity is acceleration. So change in velocity is acceleration, and so that rate of change of momentum is equal to m into a. Now what our law tells? It is proportional to the applied force. Rate of change of momentum, what is? It is ma. It is proportional to f, applied force. So if you want to remove the proportionality sign, we have to take the constant, that we know very well. So this is k, k is constant, f is equal to, we are removing the proportionality sign, taking equal to, so one constant is taken, that is k, k KMA. K is called the constant and its value is 1. As we do not write the value of K, that is 1, so it is equal to F is equal to M into A. Last year we have studied what is the unit of force, that is the Newton is the unit of force, and that is the SI unit of force is Newton, and CGS unit of force is dyne. So force has unit Newton, that we know very well. The SI unit is Newton and CGS unit is dyne. So when we say that there is 1 Newton force, means the force which is required to move or to cause acceleration of 1 meter per second square in an object of 1 kilogram, then we say that it is the 1 Newton force. And when we say that it is 1 dyne force, then we have to consider that to cause an acceleration of 1 centimeter per second square in an object of 1 gram, whatever force is applied, that is called 1 dyne force. Now in the next lecture we'll see the third law of motion.